Deep beneath Washington's volcanic peaks, where ancient lava carved hidden chambers, 3 researchers entered the darkness and vanished. On September 12, 2023, the University of Washington Geology Department received confirmation of a $120,000 National Science Foundation grant. The funding would support a comprehensive study of volcanic cave systems in the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest, specifically focusing on previously unmapped lava tube networks in the Cascade Canyon region of Whatcom County. Dr. Sarah Chen, a 45-year-old volcanologist with 15 years of field experience, eagerly accepted leadership of the project. Chen had built her reputation studying active volcanic systems across the Pacific Northwest, but these particular caves represented something unique. Preliminary geological surveys suggested the lava tubes extended far deeper than similar formations in the region, possibly connecting to undiscovered volcanic vents. For her research team, Chen selected 2 graduate students from the university's Earth and Space Sciences program. Marcus Rodriguez, 26, was pursuing his PhD in geological engineering with a specialty in subsurface mapping. His thesis focused on using ground-penetrating radar to identify structural weaknesses in volcanic rock formations. Elena Johansson, 24, was working toward her master's degree in environmental geology and had extensive experience with cave rescue techniques from her undergraduate years at the University of Utah. The trio spent weeks preparing for their fieldwork. They assembled specialized equipment including portable seismographs, core sample drilling tools, ground-penetrating radar units, and high-resolution cameras designed for underground photography. Chen insisted on redundant safety measures, multiple communication devices, emergency beacons, and enough supplies for a week underground if necessary. On October 3, 2023, the team departed Seattle in a university-owned Ford F-250 pickup truck, loaded with nearly 2,000 pounds of research equipment. The drive to their base camp location took 4 hours, winding through increasingly remote sections of the National Forest on Forest Service Road. They established camp at approximately 3,400 feet elevation in a small clearing surrounded by towering Douglas fir trees. The cave system they intended to study had no official designation on geological surveys. Local Forest Service maps simply marked it as an unnamed cave system in grid reference NK47. The entrance sat roughly half a mile upslope from their camp, accessible via a steep trail that switched back through old-growth forest and rocky talus fields. According to Chen's field notes, recovered later by investigators, the team spent their first 2 days conducting surface surveys and equipment calibration. They used ground-penetrating radar to map the general outline of the cave system, revealing what appeared to be a complex network of interconnected chambers extending northwest into the mountain. On October 6 at 7:15 a.m., Chen made her final radio contact with University of Washington base operations. The transmission, recorded by the campus communications office, was brief and routine. Day 3 fieldwork commencing. Weather clear, temperature 38 degrees. Entering cave system for subsurface surveys. Next, scheduled contact 1800 hours. That evening at 6:00 p.m., when Chen's team failed to make their scheduled radio check-in, university officials initially attributed the silence to equipment problems or difficult terrain interfering with radio signals. The Mount Baker region was notorious for unpredictable communication conditions, particularly during the transition from afternoon heating to evening cooling. But when no contact came the following morning, concern turned to alarm. Dr. Elizabeth Williams, the department chair and Chen's longtime mentor, contacted the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office at 9:30 a.m. on October 7th to report the research team as overdue and potentially in distress. What no one yet realized was that the 3 researchers had already been missing for nearly 40 hours, somewhere deep beneath the volcanic landscape of Cascade Canyon. Forest Service Ranger Tom Harwick received the missing persons call at 10:15 a.m. on October 7th while conducting routine trail maintenance near Heather Meadows. At 54 years old, Harwick had spent 2 decades working the remote backcountry of Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest. He knew that university research teams were generally well prepared and conservative in their approach to dangerous terrain. Hurrick reached the researchers' base camp at 11:45 a.m., driving his Forest Service pickup truck as far as the logging road would allow, then hiking the final quarter-mile through dense underbrush. What he found immediately concerned him. The camp appeared abandoned, but undisturbed. 2 high-quality expedition tents remained properly staked and weather-sealed. A camp stove sat on a folding table alongside an unopened package of freeze-dried meals. Personal items were neatly organized inside the tents: clothing, sleeping bags, toiletries, and laptops still in protective cases. Nothing suggested a hasty departure or struggle. More puzzling was the research equipment. Thousands of dollars worth of geological instruments remained in the camp, including backup communication devices that could have been used to call for help. Hurrick noted in his initial report that the team's emergency beacon system showed green status lights, indicating the devices were functional but had not been activated. Following boot prints leading upslope from the camp, Hurrick located the cave entrance approximately 30 minutes later. The opening appeared unremarkable, a roughly circular gap in the volcanic rock face, perhaps 4 feet in diameter, partially obscured by mountain laurel bushes and fallen logs. But the scene around the entrance revealed a more complex story. Professional rappelling ropes were still anchored to sturdy Douglas fir trees using proper climbing hardware. The rope systems extended down into the cave opening, disappearing into darkness beyond the reach of Hurrick's flashlight. Someone had clearly descended into the cave system, but the ropes remained in place, suggesting the climbers had not ascended back to the surface. Hurrick called down into the cave opening, his voice echoing strangely in the underground chambers. "Hello, University Research Team. Can anyone hear me?" The only response was a distorted echo of his own words, seeming to bounce and reverberate for an unusually long time before fading to silence. Returning to the abandoned camp, Hurrick made a more thorough investigation of the research equipment left behind. Among the instruments was a sophisticated seismograph that had been continuously recording since the team's arrival. The device's memory contained data from the past 4 days, including readings from October 6th, the day Chen's team had entered the cave. The seismic data revealed something unexpected. Beginning at approximately 9:30 a.m. on October 6th, the instruments had recorded a series of minor tremors originating from directly beneath the cave system. The readings weren't strong enough to indicate an earthquake, but they showed consistent underground movement continuing for several hours. Even more puzzling, the seismograph recorded a dramatic spike in underground activity at 2:47 p.m. on October 6th. For exactly 17 minutes, the instruments registered rhythmic vibrations unlike anything in Hurrick's experience. The pattern was too regular to be natural seismic activity, but too deep underground to be caused by surface equipment. Hurrick contacted the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office at 1:20 p.m., reporting his findings and requesting immediate assistance for a possible cave rescue operation. Deputy Sheriff Maria Santos, trained in technical rescue operations, was dispatched to coordinate the response. While waiting for backup, Hurrick made one more disturbing discovery. Among Chen's research notes, scattered on the camp table, was a hand-drawn map of the cave system based on their preliminary surveys. The map showed a complex network of chambers extending much deeper than the team had initially expected. Scrawled in Chen's handwriting at the bottom of the map was a single word: resonance. Next to it, a series of numbers: 2:47 p.m., 17 min, subsurface echo patterns. Investigate further. The timestamp matched exactly with the unusual seismic readings recorded by the team's instruments. By 3:0 p.m., as additional search and rescue personnel began arriving at the remote location, one fact had become clear. Dr. Sarah Chen and her 2 graduate students had descended into an unexplored cave system and simply vanished. Their safety ropes remained in place, their equipment functioned normally, and their camp showed no signs of external disturbance. Yet somehow, 3 experienced researchers had disappeared without trace into the volcanic depths of Mount Baker, leaving behind only mysterious seismic readings and a cryptic note about underground echoes. The question that would haunt investigators in the days to come was simple. What had they discovered down there in the darkness? Cave rescue specialist Rebecca Santos arrived at the Cascade Canyon site at 4:30 p.m. on October 7th, leading a 5-person technical rescue team from the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office. Santos, a 38-year-old former mining engineer, had coordinated underground rescues throughout the Pacific Northwest for over a decade. She immediately recognized that this cave system presented unusual challenges. Using the research team's own rappelling equipment, Santos descended into the cave opening for an initial reconnaissance. Her headlamp revealed a circular entrance shaft topping approximately 30 feet before opening into a much larger chamber. The walls showed classic lava tube formation, smooth, undulating surfaces created by flowing molten rock thousands of years earlier. But as Santos descended further, she encountered features that didn't match typical volcanic cave architecture. The main chamber branched into at least 6 separate passages, each angling downward at steep grades. Most lava tubes in the region followed relatively straight paths, formed by single lava flows. This system appeared to be a complex network of intersecting tubes, possibly created by multiple volcanic events over different time periods. The acoustics down there were immediately strange, Santos later reported to investigators. Normal caves have predictable echo patterns. Sound bounces off walls and fades in a way you can understand and map. But in the system, sounds seemed to travel much further than they should, and they came back distorted. Too many. Santos tested the acoustic properties by shouting into each of the 6 main passages. In 5 of them, her voice echoed normally, fading after a few seconds. But in the northwestern passage, which appeared to descend most steeply into the mountain, her voice seemed to be answered by strange harmonics, as if the sound were being modified by the cave structure itself. Following the trail markers left by Chen's research team, Santos explored the northwestern passage for approximately 200 yards. The tunnel maintained a consistent 4-foot height and 6-foot width, requiring crawling in some sections and crouch walking in others. The rock walls showed recent scarring and fresh debris piles, evidence of ongoing geological activity. At a depth Santos estimated as roughly 150 feet below the surface, she encountered the first of Chen's research stations. The team had installed a temporary base camp at a junction where the main tunnel intersected with 2 smaller passages. Equipment staging areas were marked with reflective tape, and core sample locations were numbered with waterproof markers, but there was no trace of the researchers themselves. Santos noted something else unusual about this underground location: temperature fluctuations. While surface temperatures that evening hovered around 45 degrees, the cave environment showed dramatic variations. Some chambers felt noticeably warmer, suggesting proximity to geothermal activity. Others were cold enough that Santos could see her breath, indicating air circulation from deeper, colder sections. Using handheld instruments borrowed from the research team's abandoned equipment, Santos measured airflow patterns in the various passages. The readings suggested a complex ventilation system, with air moving upward in some tunnels and downward in others. The circulation patterns indicated that the cave system extended much deeper than anyone had initially suspected. Perhaps most disturbing, Santos discovered evidence that Chen's team had continued deeper into the mountain than their original research plan had indicated. Following their trail markers and equipment caches, she found evidence of their presence at increasingly remote locations within the cave network. At a junction Santos estimated as 300 yards from the entrance, she located the team's final research station. Sophisticated monitoring equipment had been assembled and was still recording data. Ground-penetrating radar displays showed cave passages extending further northwest, potentially connecting to other volcanic features within Mount Baker's geological system. Handwritten notes at this location, apparently in Elena Johansson's writing, documented strange phenomena the team had encountered. Subsurface vibrations increasing in frequency and intensity. Marcus recording similar patterns on seismograph data. Dr. Chen believes we may have located previously unknown thermal vents. The final entry, timestamp 2:45 p.m. on October 6th, read, "Following acoustic anomaly Northwest Passage. Equipment indicates large chamber ahead. Investigating potential connection to primary volcanic system. Di. Nada. Santos attempted to follow the trail further, but at approximately 400 yards from the entrance, she encountered a section where recent rockfall had partially blocked the passage. Fresh debris suggested the collapse had occurred within the past few days, possibly triggered by the seismic activity recorded on Chen's instruments. Working carefully around the obstruction, Santos managed to continue for another 50 yards before reaching what appeared to be a much larger underground chamber. Her headlamp beam couldn't reach the far walls, and stones dropped into the darkness. Took several seconds to hit bottom, suggesting significant depth. It was in this chamber that Santos made her most unsettling discovery. The research team's trail markers continued across the chamber floor, leading toward multiple exit passages on the far side. But the markers were accompanied by something else. Regular patterns of disturbed sediment and rock arrangements that appeared almost intentional, as if someone had been systematically exploring and mapping the underground space. At that point, Santos later reported, I realized this wasn't a simple case of missing hikers or cavers who had gotten lost. These researchers had been conducting extensive underground exploration, far beyond what their original research proposal had indicated. And whatever they had discovered down there, it had led them deeper into the mountain than any surface maps suggested was possible. And as Santos made her way back to the surface that evening, one question echoed in her mind. If the research team had made it this far into the cave system, where were they now? Dr. Elizabeth Williams received the first call about her missing colleagues while teaching an undergraduate geology class on October 8th. As department chair and Chen's longtime mentor, Williams immediately drove to the Mount Baker site to assist with the investigation. What she discovered in Chen's research materials raised troubling questions about the true nature of the team's work. Reviewing Chen's field notes and preliminary data, Williams found evidence that the project had evolved far beyond its original scope. The National Science Foundation grant had funded a straightforward geological survey of known lava tube systems. But Chen's private research journal, found in her tent, revealed a much more ambitious and potentially dangerous investigation. Entries dating back to early September showed Chen had been studying historical accounts of unusual seismic activity in the Mount Baker region. References included mining reports from the 1920s, Native American oral histories collected by anthropologists, and Forest Service incident reports describing unexplained phenomena in the Cascade Canyon area. One journal entry, dated September 18th, read, "Correlation between historical tremor events and lunar cycles suggests non-random pattern. Traditional geological models insufficient to explain subsurface resonance characteristics. Hypothesis: undiscovered magma chambers creating acoustic amplification effects." Williams contacted Dr. James Morrison, a seismologist at the University of Washington who had consulted on Chen's grant application. Morrison revealed that Chen had approached him several times in recent months, with theories that the department had considered speculative at best. Sarah was convinced that the Mount Baker volcanic system included features that hadn't been properly mapped, Morrison explained to investigators. She talked about subsurface chambers that could amplify seismic waves, creating resonance patterns unlike anything we'd documented in other volcanic regions. The problem was, she had no hard evidence to support her theories. According to Morrison, Chen had requested access to sensitive seismic monitoring data from the Cascade Volcano Observatory, data that would have revealed the precise locations of underground geological features. When her request was denied due to security protocols, Chen apparently decided to gather the evidence herself through direct underground exploration. Marcus Rodriguez's research notes, recovered from his laptop computer, provided additional insight into the team's evolving mission. Rodriguez had been using sophisticated ground-penetrating radar to map the cave system in far greater detail than the original research proposal had indicated. His data files contained three-dimensional models of underground chambers extending more than half a mile into Mount Baker. Even more concerning, Rodriguez's files included correspondence with mining engineers and cave mapping specialists from outside the university. The emails, exchanged throughout September, discussed techniques for exploring unstable underground environments and methods for detecting volcanic gas emissions in enclosed spaces. Elena Johansson's thesis advisor, Dr. Patricia Kim, provided perhaps the most troubling information about the team's activities. Kim revealed that Johansson had been researching historical accounts of people disappearing in cave systems throughout the Pacific Northwest, particularly cases involving unexplained seismic activity. Elena came to me in late August with questions about missing person cases from the 1970s and 1980s, Kim told investigators. She was particularly interested in incidents where experienced cavers or researchers had vanished without trace in volcanic cave systems. At the time, I assumed it was general academic curiosity, but now I wonder if she was preparing for something specific. Kim provided copies of Johansson's research files, which documented 17 cases of mysterious disappearances in Cascade Range caves over the past 50 years. The files included detailed timelines, weather conditions, and seismic data for each incident. Several cases showed patterns remarkably similar to the current situation: experienced researchers entering well-explored cave systems and simply vanishing. Perhaps most disturbing was a pattern Johansson had identified in her research. The historical disappearances occurred in clusters, with multiple incidents happening within short time periods, separated by years of normal cave exploration activity. The most recent cluster had occurred in 1987 and 1988, when 4 separate incidents within 6 months had led to temporary closure of several cave systems in the North Cascades. According to Johansson's analysis, the timing of these clusters correlated with periods of increased seismic activity in the Mount Baker region. Her files included a timeline suggesting that another cluster period was statistically overdue, potentially beginning in late 2023. Dr. Williams made one final discovery while reviewing the team's research materials. Hidden in Chen's laptop computer, password-protected and encrypted, was a video file recorded on October 5th, the evening before the team entered the cave system. In the video, Chen addressed the camera directly. "If something happens to us down there, people need to understand that we weren't just conducting routine geological surveys. We believe we've identified a previously unknown type of volcanic cave system, one that exhibits properties that challenge current understanding of subsurface geology. The resonance patterns we've detected suggest chambers and passages that extend far deeper than surface surveys indicate." Chen paused in the recording, glancing at notes off camera before continuing. Elena's research into historical incidents suggests this area has a pattern of unexplained phenomena. We're taking every safety precaution, but if we don't return, investigators should know that we were exploring theories that the scientific establishment wasn't prepared to support. The video ended with Chen looking directly into the camera. Sometimes scientific discovery requires taking risks that others consider unacceptable. We believe what we find tomorrow will revolutionize understanding of volcanic cave systems in the Pacific Northwest. It was the last time anyone would see Dr. Sarah Chen alive. As investigators pieced together the research team's true objectives, a disturbing picture emerged. The 3 scientists hadn't simply disappeared while conducting routine fieldwork. They had deliberately ventured into dangerous territory, pursuing theories that their academic colleagues had rejected, following patterns that suggested they knew they were taking extraordinary risks. The question remained, what had they expected to find in the depths of Mount Baker, and had they found it? The Mount Baker region has always been geologically restless, but in the weeks leading up to the research team's disappearance, something unusual was stirring beneath the volcanic landscape. Dr. Michael Reeves, a seismologist with the United States Geological Survey, had been monitoring the area's activity from his office in Seattle. His instruments detected a series of minor tremors beginning on October 3rd, the same day the team arrived at their base camp. The readings were subtle, Reeves later explained to investigators. Nothing that would trigger public alerts, but definitely above baseline activity for that sector of the Cascade Range. The seismic data painted an intriguing picture. Rather than the typical sharp jolts associated with tectonic movement, these tremors showed a prolonged, rhythmic pattern. Some lasted for several minutes, with frequencies that suggested movement of fluids or gases deep underground. The epicenters clustered around a network of volcanic vents approximately 2 miles northeast of where the research team had established their base camp. Weather conditions added another layer of complexity to the mystery. October 6th had dawned clear and mild, with temperatures in the mid-50s at the 3,400-foot elevation where the team was working. But according to National Weather Service records, a sudden atmospheric disturbance moved through the area around 2:30 p.m. that afternoon. Meteorologist Janet Kowalski analyzed the data from weather stations throughout Whatcom County. "We saw a rapid pressure drop of nearly half an inch of mercury over a 30-minute period," she reported. "That's the kind of change you'd expect from a major storm front, but our satellite imagery showed clear skies. The temperature also dropped 18 degrees in less than an hour, which is highly unusual for that time of year." Local wildlife behavior provided additional clues that something was amiss in the forest ecosystem. Park naturalist David Thornton had been conducting routine wildlife surveys in the area during the first week of October. His field notes, later reviewed by investigators, documented several anomalies. On October 4th, Thornton observed a large group of deer moving rapidly downhill, away from the volcanic slopes and toward lower elevations. "In 20 years of work in these mountains, I've never seen deer abandon their feeding grounds so abruptly without an obvious threat," he wrote. Bird behavior was equally strange. Species that normally remained in the forest canopy were found at ground level, and several hikers reported that the usually vocal population of Steller's jays had gone completely silent. Perhaps most disturbing were the reports from local residents living in the scattered communities along the Mount Baker Highway. Starting on October 5th, multiple families called the Forest Service to report unusual sounds emanating from the mountain during the night hours. The descriptions were remarkably consistent. A low, resonant humming that seemed to come from underground, punctuated by what one caller described as breathing sounds from deep inside the earth. Ranger Tom Harwick investigated these reports personally. "I drove up to the Glacier Creek overlook around midnight on October 6th, he later told investigators. "The sounds were definitely there. It was like standing next to a massive pipe organ playing notes too low for human ears to fully process. The vibrations, you could feel them in your chest." Outside, the Geological Survey team had been aware of at least some of these environmental changes. Dr. Chen's final radio transmission, logged at 7:15 a.m. on October 6th, included a brief mention of atmospheric pressure variations affecting our instruments. Marcus Rodriguez had also noted in his field journal that their electronic equipment was experiencing intermittent malfunctions throughout their first few days at the site. But it was Alina Johansson's personal notebook, discovered at the abandoned base camp, that provided the most intriguing details. Her final entry, dated October 6th, described subsurface acoustic phenomena that don't match any volcanic activity in the literature. She had sketched what appeared to be a waveform diagram, with notations suggesting she was attempting to record and analyze the underground sounds. Dr. Reeves would later determine that the seismic activity peaked at approximately 2:47 p.m. on October 6th, just over 7 hours after the team's last radio contact. The tremor lasted for exactly 17 minutes and registered as the strongest in a series of events that had been building for days. What made this particular seismic event unusual was its signature. Instead of the typical sharp spike and gradual decay of an earthquake, The readings showed what Reeves described as sustained harmonic resonance. The pattern was unlike anything in his database of regional volcanic activity. In the aftermath of the team's disappearance, investigators discovered that similar environmental anomalies had occurred in the same general area on 3 previous occasions over the past 15 years. Each time, the events had lasted approximately 1 week, featured the same combination of seismic activity and atmospheric disturbances, and had been followed by reports of unusual sounds from underground. What remained unclear was whether these environmental factors had somehow contributed to the research team's fate, or whether their disappearance was simply an unfortunate coincidence of timing. The correlation between the peak seismic activity and the team's final known location suggested that natural forces might have played a role in whatever had happened to them in the depths of the cave system. But the precise nature of that role would remain one of the many unanswered questions surrounding their disappearance. When the University of Washington research team failed to return by their scheduled check-in time of 6:00 p.m. on October 6th, Ranger Tom Harwick waited until dawn before initiating search protocols. But by 7:00 a.m. on October 7th, the situation had escalated into the largest search and rescue operation in Whatcom County's recent history. Sheriff Rebecca Martinez coordinated the multi-agency response from a command post established at the team's base camp. Representatives from the National Park Service, Forest Service, Whatcom County Sheriff's Office, and University of Washington formed an incident command structure that would ultimately involve over 60 personnel across 5 days of intensive searching. Our initial assessment was straightforward, Martinez later explained in her official report. 3 experienced researchers with proper equipment and communication devices had entered a known cave system and failed to emerge. We approached it as a technical rescue scenario, assuming they were trapped by rockfall or equipment failure. Initio, the first teams to enter the cave system were veteran rescuers from Skagit County's Mountain Rescue Unit, led by cave specialist Rebecca Santos. Santos had mapped similar lava tube networks throughout the Cascades and brought sophisticated rope systems and communication equipment designed specifically for underground rescue operations. What they found defied their expectations. The research team's rope systems remained exactly as they had been installed, properly anchored and showing no signs of failure or disturbance. Safety markers placed by the team were still in position, leading rescuers approximately 800 feet into the main tunnel before ending abruptly at what appeared to be a natural junction chamber. From a technical standpoint, everything looked perfect, Santos reported. Their rope work was textbook quality. All their anchor points were solid, and there was no evidence of rockfall or structural collapse. It was as if they had simply vanished from that chamber. But the rescue teams began experiencing their own difficulties almost immediately upon entering the cave system. Electronic equipment, including GPS units, digital cameras, and radio communications, suffered repeated malfunctions. Batteries drained at accelerated rates, and several team members reported that their headlamps dimmed significantly in certain areas of the cave. More troubling were the acoustic anomalies. Santos described hearing what sounded like distant voices or machinery operating somewhere deeper in the cave system. But when teams investigated, they found only empty passages carved by ancient lava flows. Sound seemed to travel in unexpected ways through the tunnels, with conversations from the entrance clearly audible in chambers over 1,000 feet underground, while voices from adjacent rooms could be completely inaudible. As the search expanded, teams discovered that the cave system was far more extensive than previous geological surveys had indicated. Digital mapping revealed at least 7 major branches extending from the primary tunnel, with several passages descending to depths that exceeded the team's available rope lengths. On October 9th, searchers made their first significant discovery. Graduate student Elena Johansson's field notebook was found in a side passage approximately 400 feet from the main tunnel junction. The notebook was dry and undamaged, sitting on a natural shelf of volcanic rock, as if it had been carefully placed there. Most puzzling was its location. The passage where it was discovered showed no footprints or other signs of human passage. The notebook's final entries provided tantalizing clues. Johansson had documented increasingly strange acoustic phenomena during their descent. including what she described as harmonic resonance patterns, suggesting large hollow spaces far below our current position. Her last dated entry mentioned plans to explore a passage that shows signs of recent thermal activity. 2 days later, searchers found Dr. Sarah Chen's GPS unit in yet another location that seemed impossible to reach without leaving traces. The device was discovered in a narrow crevice nearly 1,200 feet from the main tunnel, down a passage so constricted that most team members could barely squeeze through it single file. Yet there were no scuff marks on the rock walls, no disturbed sediment, no indication that anyone had ever traveled that route. The GPS unit's memory contained waypoints marking the team's progress through the cave system, but the final coordinates placed them in a location that rescue teams could not locate despite extensive mapping efforts. According to the device's internal clock, the last waypoint had been recorded at 2:33 p.m. on October 6th, just 14 minutes before the major seismic event recorded by their monitoring equipment. Professional search teams from Seattle and Vancouver joined the effort on October 10th, bringing ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging equipment. The technology revealed the cave system's true complexity, a three-dimensional maze of interconnected chambers and passages extending over 2 miles in multiple directions, with several areas showing thermal signatures suggesting active geothermal features. But the advanced equipment also suffered the same mysterious malfunctions that had plagued earlier search efforts. Thermal cameras produced distorted images, radar readings were inconsistent, and GPS coordinates frequently showed impossible locations. Search coordinator Bradley Williams made the difficult decision to suspend active cave exploration on October 11th, after several rescue team members reported experiencing disorientation and memory gaps while working in the deeper passages. "We were putting more people at risk," Williams stated in his final report. "Whatever happened to the research team, we couldn't afford to lose additional personnel to the same unknown factors." The official search was scaled back to surface operations, but the mystery had only deepened. 3 experienced researchers had entered a cave system with proper equipment and safety protocols, only to vanish completely, leaving behind scattered personal items in locations that seemed impossible to reach. In the months that followed, the cave system was declared off-limits to civilian access, its entrance sealed with barriers and warning signs. But local residents continued to report strange sounds emanating from the mountain, and several unauthorized attempts to enter the sealed cave were documented by Forest Service personnel. The question remained, what had the University of Washington team discovered in those volcanic passages, and where had that discovery led them? In the weeks following the suspension of active search operations, investigators focused their attention on the data the research team had transmitted before their disappearance. What they discovered in those final electronic records would raise more questions than answers about what had transpired in the depths of the Mount Baker cave system. Dr. Martin Webb, an acoustic engineer from the University of Washington, was brought in to analyze the audio recordings automatically captured by the team's monitoring equipment. The digital files, transmitted via satellite uplink throughout October 6th, contained nearly 6 hours of ambient cave recordings. What Webb found embedded in those files defied conventional explanation. The frequency analysis revealed sounds that shouldn't exist in a natural cave environment, Webb reported to investigators. Starting at approximately 1:15 p.m., we detected artificial tones with mathematical precision, almost like electronic signals. But more disturbing were the organic sounds, rhythmic patterns that resembled breathing or heartbeat, but at a scale that would require a creature of enormous size. The audio data also captured fragments of the research team's conversations throughout their exploration. Dr. Chen could be heard discussing temperature readings that don't match any volcanic activity patterns in our database. Marcus Rodriguez mentioned detecting airflow from passages that don't appear on any survey maps. But it was Elena Johansson's voice, recorded at 2:31 p.m., that provided the most chilling insight. There's something moving down there, something big. The acoustics are bouncing off a structure that shouldn't exist at this depth. What to be? The team's final data transmission, logged at 2:33 p.m., included seismic readings that suggested significant structural movement deep within the mountain. Dr. Michael Reeves, who analyzed these recordings, determined that the readings indicated either a massive rockfall or the opening of previously sealed chambers far below the team's known location. The seismic signature was consistent with large-scale displacement of rock and debris, Reeves explained. But the duration and pattern suggested something more controlled than a natural collapse. The movement continued for exactly 17 minutes, then stopped abruptly. University officials launched their own investigation into the team's research objectives, seeking to understand what had drawn Dr. Chen's group to that particular cave system. What they discovered was evidence of a private research initiative that extended beyond the approved geological survey. Dr. Chen's personal research files, accessed with family permission, revealed her belief that the Mount Baker volcanic system contained undocumented chambers that might preserve evidence of prehistoric geological events. Her theoretical work suggested that certain lava tube networks could contain isolated atmospheric pockets dating back thousands of years, potentially offering insights into ancient climate conditions. More intriguing were Chen's communications with colleagues at other institutions. Email records showed she had been corresponding with researchers studying similar cave systems in Iceland and New Zealand, comparing acoustic data that suggested the presence of massive hollow spaces deep within volcanic mountain ranges. Chen believed she had identified unique resonance patterns that could reveal the location and size of these hidden chambers. The investigation also uncovered Chen's growing conviction that the Mount Baker system was geologically active in ways not reflected in official monitoring data. Her private notes referenced subsurface activity patterns, suggesting active magma movement at depths previously thought to be solidified rock. She had theorized that the cave system might provide direct access to observe volcanic processes that typically occurred far below human reach. As winter approached, the Forest Service made the decision to permanently seal the cave system. The entrance was filled with concrete barriers and reinforced with steel grating. Officially designated as too dangerous for public access due to unstable geological conditions and documented equipment failures, affecting communication and navigation systems. But the mystery refused to remain buried. Throughout the winter months, local residents continued to report unusual phenomena in the Mount Baker area. The low-frequency humming sounds persisted, often accompanied by vibrations strong enough to rattle windows in homes several miles from the mountain. Several residents documented these events with recording equipment, and the audio patterns matched those captured by the research team's monitoring devices. Perhaps most unsettling were the reports from experienced climbers and backcountry enthusiasts who ventured into the area despite official warnings. Multiple witnesses described discovering new cave openings in locations where none had existed before, as if the mountain itself was opening new passages to replace those that had been sealed. Ranger Tom Harwick continued to patrol the area and documented these reports in his official logs. "I've seen 3 separate cave entrances that weren't there during the search operations," he noted in a December 2023 entry. "The rock around these openings shows signs of recent formation, but geological processes that could create such features would typically take decades or centuries." The University of Washington officially suspended all volcanic cave research pending a comprehensive safety review. Dr. Chen's position remained unfilled, and the Geology Department's cave exploration program was restructured to focus exclusively on non-volcanic systems in other regions. Yet questions persisted about what the research team had encountered in those final moments before their disappearance. Had they discovered evidence of geological processes beyond current scientific understanding? Had they found chambers or structures that challenged assumptions about the mountain's formation? The acoustic data suggested they had encountered something extraordinary in the depths of the cave system. Whether that discovery was natural or something else entirely remained a matter of speculation. The sounds captured in their final recordings, the impossible locations where their equipment was found, and the continuing anomalies reported throughout the region all pointed to phenomena that existing scientific models could not adequately explain. Today, The sealed entrance to the Mount Baker cave system stands as a monument to unanswered questions. Warning signs posted by the Forest Service cite geological instability and equipment hazards, but they cannot address the deeper mystery of what lies hidden in the mountain's depths, or what became of 3 researchers who ventured too far into the darkness and never returned. The echoes of their final transmission continue to reverberate through the scientific community, a reminder that even in our modern age of advanced technology and comprehensive geological surveys, the Earth still holds secrets that resist our attempts to understand them. What Dr. Sarah Chen, Marcus Rodriguez, and Elena Johansson discovered in the volcanic depths of Cascade Canyon remains unknown, lost somewhere in the labyrinthine passages beneath Mount Baker. Their disappearance stands as a testament to both the courage of scientific inquiry and the enduring mystery of the natural world, where some questions may never find answers, and some echoes may never fade to silence.